We're visiting Ansel Adams' home and workroom again, and here's the sign to prove it. So let's go in and meet with Ansel's son, Michael. Michael, thanks again for inviting us back to your house.
Pleasure.
Where are we? Tell me about this room.
This is the main gallery living room of the Ansel Adams home, which was constructed in the early 60s, and which Jeannie and I have owned since 1990, and now live here. So
It's
we're
amazing.
very pleased to have this as our living room.
I understand.
And gallery space.
Michael, can you tell me about Clearing Winter Storm?
Yes. The Clearing Winter Storm has a very interesting story. For many years, and in some of Ansel's books, it was indicated it was taken in 1944. But a little further research here a few years ago turned out it's about 1936.
He uses this as an example of visualization.
Yes.
Do you know any of the story behind that?
Other than when he taught his workshops, he preached the pre-visualization, that you know what you're going to get when you have the final result. You know that in advance. In your mind, you know what's going to be the final result, and that is sort of the visualization or pre-visualization that he was talking about.
Right.
And it was an important part of his teaching.
Do you have any stories of his teaching?
He really enjoyed teaching, and he felt that was a very important part of his life's work. And I can remember his original workshop was 1940, and he had Edward Wesson as one of his associates with it. And we have pictures of Edward up in the Tenaya Lake area. And that started things. It carried on into a fairly large and extensive program of 2 one-week back-to-back workshops every spring in Yosemite. And that went on for a number of years. It subsequently, it continues today under the Ansel Adams Gallery, but very different.
Yeah.
People can't take a week off
Right.
now. They come for weekends or day, and the workshop program is quite different. But what he started was really the beginning of photographic workshops that we know today, and it's a very extensive program.
I think one of the things to me that stands out about Ansel is that he gave back so much. He taught, he wrote the books, and
He did, and I think he really enjoyed that, and I think he felt that what his books could do was an extension of his workshops.
Right.
And I can't say he taught his workshops from the book, but the material was there.
I see.
And that's carried on today with people like John Sexton and Alan Ross and Ted Orland. These people are teaching workshops sort of based on that original idea that Ansel got started.
There were so many great photographers of Ansel's era, and yet he became a household name. What do you think the secret sauce was?
I think it's probably the product. What he produced, people loved.
Yeah.
And that was the way he did his photography. It was dramatic. Again, I think we've talked before, it's not what you see. He would always state, it's what I want you to see.
Right.
These are dramatic photographs. They wouldn't look like this if you were there looking at it, but I want you to see it this way. And those products, those photographs, have become known throughout America and maybe the world. And it's remarkable because I go on a tour and a talk about Ansel, give a slideshow, and people come from all over and they come up with questions about it, and they're just, even today, so many years later, they're enthusiastic about what they're seeing in these programs that I give with black and white photography. It's dramatic, and it's still very loved today. I think that's why he stood above the others, that he produced a very dramatic image that fit with people's ideas of environment and the national parks and exciting nature. So I think it's the quality of the reproduction that is not common today.
That's right.
That his quality of black and white and the sharpness is something that is very special.
Now, one of the things Ansel talked about was he did a lot of commercial work.
He did.
He said he learned from that. Do you have any stories about?
Well,
what
Ansel had to make a living
Yeah.
in his earlier days, so when he took up photography, he had to take a lot of commissions to do commercial work. I don't think he really enjoyed it in some ways, but some of the jobs gave him an opportunity to travel. And during those trips, he would use time to do his, his definitive work, his
Right.
creative work. So commercial was necessary. He did a, interesting job with much of the commercial. He did a lot more probably than we realize. He did a lot of commercial work in color, which we don't see.
We don't, yeah.
He was doing it for Kodak or some other, I remember Standard Oil.
Yeah.
And again, he lost control of the color. He took the picture, sent the film to Kodak, it was developed. He didn't have the final
I see.
control of it, so he wasn't that interested in it.
Right.
But it was a job.
And something that stands out for me, what he said was, when you're doing these jobs, you're exposed to circumstances that you wouldn't normally be in.
I think you're put into circumstances that you didn't plan for, and you make the best of what you can with what you've got.
Right.
And,
which is a
try
good
to
way
do
of
it.
learning.
Yeah.
Michael, can we have a look at some of Ansel's cameras?
Why don't we go in the workroom here and we'll take a look at a couple of his photographs.
Awesome. Let's see what we've got here. Wow, this is 8x10.
8x10 Deardorff. This is one of his 8x10s that we purchased. He sold it to Phil Hyde many years ago, and we ultimately got it back because all of Ansel's cameras went to the Center for Creative Photography in Tucson,
Right.
Arizona, after he passed away. So we didn't have a thing. So to get a camera for us to exhibit along with some of our shows that we are doing, photographic exhibits, we were able to get this camera. The lens was not Ansel's. We had to buy that from the East Coast. But the Morley Bear helped us get this thing set up. So we'd have a true Ansel Adams camera that he had owned earlier in his career.
This is amazing.
Yeah, the only story about this that Phil Hyde could give us was this was a camera that Ansel used in the 50s for the big Kodak coloramas. That he knew that for a fact. We exhibit it now as a demonstration of a camera that Ansel used.
And the coloramas were segments?
Coloramas were Kodak presentations in Grand Central Station. And what Ansel and other photographers do would take several images and they would mount these behind glass, backlighted in the Grand Central Station up to 60 feet long and something like 15 feet high.
Wow.
Transparencies. And it could be one big transparency or could be a center with a couple on the outside. And invariably somebody was taking a picture with a Kodak camera in that colorama.
I'm going to turn it around so our viewers can see what Ansel would have looked through the ground glass here, of course, with a hood on. But that's what he was focusing with.
And he would focus, make it as sharp as he could, and then obviously take the picture. The film holder would go in here.
Right, slide right in.
And that's what I can tell you about it.
So, again, when we're talking about visualization, he would look through the ground glass, upside down, the
It's
image,
upside down.
and be able to visualize what that final photograph would look like.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. And in terms of framing, you have a rectangular
8x10.
8x10.
Basically, that's the film size, and that's what he's looking at, the full image.
Exactly. Wow, that's phenomenal. 25, 30 pounds?
It's not light.
I mean, you want it on a tripod.
And then you have a heavy-duty tripod to put it on so it doesn't move around too much.
It's a big piece of equipment.
It is. And then you carry all the film holders with it and maybe extra lenses and filters. And
Yeah, it's not like pulling your iPhone out.
no,
and
it's
taking a
not
shot.
at all.
That's amazing. Let's look at the other camera.
Let me move this out of the way
All right.
and bring this.
And
This-
what do we have here?
This is a Super Ikonta B, a Zeiss camera.
Okay.
This actual camera was bought by Ansel and given to my mother in the 30s. And the interesting thing about it, Ansel loved this camera and he would borrow it back for a number of jobs. But it's a wonderful camera. It's a 120 or 120 film, 12 images. And Ansel liked it because it was a very high quality camera.
Yeah, the lens is a Zeiss lens.
2 1/4 type, yeah.
2 1/4 square, right?
2 1/4 square.
This is actually very small for a 2 1/4 square.
And again,
camera.
that was built in the 30s, so it's a, it's a pretty remarkable camera. It has things. It has a built-in meter.
Oh, it does. Wow.
This one does, and it had this, so you knew which roll of a picture you were on of the roll.
Quite a difference between the 8x10.
Yes.
Where you're sliding in 2 negatives, and this, which is really portable and doesn't require a tripod. Beautiful camera.
It was used on a tripod at times. I know.
Yeah, I can see.
It has the capability.
Well, this is almost like a modern camera.
And we have not used it in the last few years, but it's a great example of a very fine camera from that era.
It's beautiful. Michael, thanks again for inviting us to your
welcome.
home. Absolutely wonderful.
We look forward to another visit.
So I want to thank you guys again for joining us at Ansel Adams' house, and thank you, Michael, for inviting us once again. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and we love it when you guys leave your comments down here, when you like us and share with your friends. And be sure to get out and capture your own images of life.